In Gennady Golovkin's previous fight, he stopped Kell Brook in 5 rounds, but he failed to drop Kell Brook. And Kell Brook has been dropped before in his professional career. Kell Brook has also been hurt several times in his pro career, including against, was it Shenchenko? The guy who stopped Ricky Hatton, the guy who was stopped by Paulie Malignaggi. He hurt Kell Brook noticeably when they fought. But yet Gennady Golovkin, the guy who is revered as this devastating puncher and one of the biggest punchers pound for pound in boxing, wasn't able to drop Kell Brook, a blown up welterweight. Then in Golovkin's most recent fight last Saturday, he did drop Danny Jacobs, but he wasn't able to knock him out. He wasn't even able to come close to knocking him out, really. Even when he dropped him in the 4th round, Jacobs was maybe buzzed, but not particularly hurt. Golovkin couldn't finish him off. Jacobs was confident enough in his own chin to go toe-to-toe with Golovkin at several points, particularly in the second half of the fight. Wasn't intimidated by Golovkin's power at all. After the fight, he said it wasn't that bad in there in terms of how heavy Golovkin's hands were. It was nothing. He said that Golovkin wasn't even the biggest puncher he's been in the ring with. And Danny Jacobs is a guy who's been knocked out properly before by Dmitry Pirog. So people are asking the question, is Gennady Golovkin's power overrated? You've had people like Martin Murray and Gabriel Rosado come out and say that Golovkin's power is good, but nothing crazy. I believe it was Gabriel Rosado who said that Peter Quillin actually hits harder than Golovkin. So, what do you guys think? Is Golovkin's power overrated? My personal view is that Golovkin is a very good puncher. His power is certainly not a myth. He can punch. But he's not the most explosive puncher out there. And sometimes when it comes to scoring clean knockouts, it's a case of catching opponents when they're not aware. Catching opponents with punches they don't see. And if you're more explosive and fast than a guy like Golovkin, it's more likely that you're going to be able to land such a punch. Golovkin's punches are accurate, well-timed, but they're not particularly fast. So how many times is he going to catch an opponent by surprise? This is what you have to take into consideration. And even the greatest punchers of all time faced people that they couldn't knock out. Some of them faced people who had been knocked out before, but they weren't able to do it. I've brought up the example of Mike Tyson many times. Mike Tyson went the distance with people like James Tillis. James Tillis had been stopped several times before he fought Tyson. And Tyson wasn't able to stop him. He did stop Razor Ruddock in the first fight, but in the second fight, it went the distance. Whereas Razor Ruddock, before fighting Tyson, was knocked out by David Jaco. He was also knocked out after facing Tyson, a couple of fights later, by Lennox Lewis in 2 rounds. And yet Tyson is revered as one of the greatest punchers ever. Bone Crusher Smith went the distance with Tyson. Bone Crusher Smith was knocked out, ironically, by Razor Ruddock a few fights later. Tyson couldn't do it. He never came close to knocking out Bone Crusher Smith. There are many different factors to take into consideration as to why fighters can't knock out certain people. Golovkin is, to repeat myself, in my view, a very good puncher. He's maybe not a Julian Jackson level puncher, because Julian Jackson just had freaky power. Maybe not even a Gerald McClellan level puncher in terms of just pure punching power. But he's certainly up there. I certainly believe he's the hardest punching. Well, maybe David Lemieux might be a harder one-punch hitter than Golovkin, possibly. You could maybe make that debate. Peter Quillin, as far as I'm aware, has moved up to 168. So he's kind of out of the running at the moment in terms of punching power. Danny Jacobs, he's a good puncher, but I would probably imagine Golovkin's a better puncher than Danny Jacobs. So I know people who believe Jacobs won the fight, a lot of them are very big at bashing on Golovkin, bashing Golovkin at the moment. Pause. That sounded a bit dodgy a second ago. Yeah, they're a bit big on bashing Golovkin at the moment and acting as though this guy has got nothing good going for him. But I take a more logical approach, and I think a more fair approach, an objective approach. And I think, Golovkin's not a perfect fighter, but when you put him in context with big punchers of the past, some of the greatest punchers of all time, they weren't knocking everybody out neither. So let's not get carried away. Maybe you disagree though. Maybe you think Golovkin's power is overrated, that he's been knocking people out who were there to get knocked out. He stopped Curtis Stevens, but then look what Lemieux did to Curtis Stevens. I mean, even somebody like Hassan and Damon Jacobs managed to drop Curtis Stevens. So it's not like it's impossible. It's not like it's such a big feat to be stopping someone like Stevens. You look at, who else now? Rubio. Okay, a guy who Golovkin knocked out. Rubio himself had been knocked out in one round, clean, prior to being stopped by Golovkin. So a lot of people are going to look at Golovkin's knockout record and say, you know what, he's knocking people out that are supposed to get knocked out. His power is not really that serious, As I say, I don't think he's historically the biggest puncher middleweight ever, but I think he'd hold his own in terms of power in any era. Let me stop waffling here, people. You get the point I'm making in the video. Let me know what you feel about it. Drop it in the comment section below. It's happening, I'm out.